do you know the average human attention span is as good as a goldfish? Like, no pressure. Did I have any control over this situation? And obviously that's the first step to reframing your thoughts. Best thing I ever did, changed my life. And I'd recommend that experience to anyone. The only other danger as well, Brad Pitt could obviously come in and, you know, steal your crush, and that also is that could happen. Anything you're doing in life takes time to get there, so you haven't really got time to waste. Might want to leave that out, but yeah. Hi, so I'm Chris from Pure Precision Health and Performance. I'm a professional life and tennis coach, and you can find me at www.pureprecisionhp.com. I'm on Instagram, pureprecision_HP, and you can find me on YouTube, Pure Precision Health and Performance. Yes, my earliest influences were definitely close friends and family. And I would say outside of them, I was a 90s born guy. So just to take you down a trip down memory lane, I grew up watching a lot of WWE wrestling. That was a massive thing back in the day. And you know, you had a lot of influential people like The Rock, Stone Cold, Triple H, the Dudley Boys. I could go on, and it was, like I say, it was a massive phenomenon back when I was younger. And a lot of people were into The Rock and Triple H and Steve Austin and all the big guys. But I was quite into, I enjoyed watching Jeff Hardy. I found him like just exhilarating to watch. You know, the stunts he was doing. He was basically putting his body on the line for everybody else's entertainment. And he was just doing crazy stuff, really entertaining. And he had the kind of influence where I'd want to go out and be a bit more daring. Like, I can remember going down the beach one day, and there was like a 20 foot or 15 foot sort of pipe. You know, I remember just watching him on TV, and I wanted to go and like flip off the pipe into the sea. Like, he had that kind of influence on me where I wanted to go and sort of try things and be a bit more daring. And even just, you know, with your friends, wrestling with friends, we'd all get together and you'd be, you know, play wrestling, and, you know, I'd want to be trying some of his moves. And I think subtly looking back, that's quite an influential figure, you know, for someone who can make you go and sort of try those things and be a bit more daring. I'd say, yeah, like I said, outside of friends and family, that's quite a subtle influence. And I think subtly you're almost breaking down limiting beliefs when you're a young guy if someone's making you sort of do that. So yeah, I found him very sort of engaging and entertaining to watch. So yeah. I fell in love with tennis when I was probably about 10 years of age, and I got really into it. I'd say positive influences for me were players such as David Nalbandian, Andy Roddick, Marat Safin, Leighton Hewitt. I could watch any of those guys on TV and I just want to be out there trying to be better, trying to try some new things. So they were very positive people. I found them like to be quite interesting characters and sort of interesting personalities. But yeah, they definitely were very influential. They made me always want to go and play after watching them, any of those guys. So I felt like that they were definitely, yeah, very positive influences on my tennis growing up. And yeah, lucky really. My dad had a very sporting background, and he's a very sporty guy. And yeah, he took me down to the tennis court initially. We had a few games, and you know, I started to get a feel for it. But no, it's just a case of I joined a group coaching session when I was young. I remember I was at football training, and I looked over and I saw a couple of friends doing tennis, and I thought, oh, that looks fun. And I ended up going and trying the following weekend. My football manager was happy for me to go and try it, and I ended up that's kind of where I kind of fell in love with it properly. And yeah, I went back to that group coaching session, and then where I was doing the group coaching session, I became a member. Then I got playing into some kind of open public match play sessions where you can just go along and roll up, and then, you know, they put you into matches, and then you go from there. You know, then I joined a bigger club in my local town. Joined a much bigger club, started getting around better players, started getting in with some players there. Then you start entering club tournaments, and then from club tournaments you start entering tournaments outside of clubs, more into like the regional kind of county sort of level, until eventually one day, you know, I did enter a couple of national level events, but it just slowly goes from there really. It's just a slow burner. Yeah, I think I have had quite a positive influence on people's lives. I'd say both in tennis and out of tennis. I'd say at this point. You know, I've coached many people now in tennis across group settings or individually, from all different ages, all different backgrounds, all different levels. I'd like to think I've helped people kind of fall in love with tennis, fall back in love with tennis, achieve what they wanted to achieve out of it. So that's from a tennis point of view, I'd say yes. I'm quite pleased to say that I think I have had a good influence on people. And out of tennis, I'd like to think as well, I've helped lots of different people with their own challenges outside of tennis. And again, very, very sort of different people, different set of problems, ages, ethnicities. So I'd like to think I have, and I've had many people kind of send me messages to say thank you, or have written testimonials about me. And I'm not someone who really needs thank yous. I just do it because it's what I do. I like doing it. So, but I'd like to think I have been a positive influence on people, and I feel like I am now, and I try to be, and I will definitely continue to be going forward, because it's something which I'm passionate about. So I would say for a big chunk of my life, probably during my 20s, I was definitely probably a workaholic. And I was kind of relentlessly going after what I wanted to go after. I'd say now I'm a little bit older, I'm definitely finding a bit more balance, and I value the importance of getting some balance. But in saying that, if you're going after different things, if you're chasing after goals, these things take time and they take hard work. So I think I probably go through phases where I push a bit harder with the work, and then I come off the gas a little bit. I try and find some balance, because it is important to look after yourself and not burn out. And balance is ultimately the key. Looking for some seamlessly harmonic work-life balance, and I think that gets spoken up quite a bit. Each to their own. I don't mind sort of sometimes going a little bit more into the extra work, because maybe in the future I might not have to work as much. So I'd rather initially put in some good work while kind of young and fresh and energetic. But I do think it's important. There has to be some balance. So, but I wouldn't consider myself a workaholic now, but I probably was a workaholic. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm definitely not like the 4 or 5 a.m. club guys who are getting up super early and going on runs. And I'll be getting up 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Sometimes I'll have kickboxing training before I start my day. So that can be a thing I'm sometimes doing. I'm not typically kind of up at 5, 6 going for runs. I do occasionally, but for me it's kind of like a 5:30, 7 o'clock, get up and drink lots of water, have a good breakfast, maybe check a few emails, check diary, just things like that, and then get on with my day. But some mornings I'll have kickboxing training, so I can be up a bit earlier than usual. But I'm probably more of as the day goes on, I get better. I'm like a slow burner, so I can stay up until 11:30, no problem, and sleep 7.5 hours. That's perfect. So I can still be quite productive in the evening. Whereas I know for other people it's completely the opposite. They're like huge energy in the morning. They're up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. Amazing until maybe 4 or 5 in the evening, and then it's like crash. So I think everyone's a bit different. You got to find, but I think you got to find what works for you ultimately. Find out what works for you. How much sleep do you need? Do you need lots? Do you need enough? I do think it's so like kind of personal, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm a little bit concerned for the younger generation. I'm a little bit concerned in terms of where their frustration's going to go when things in their life don't plan out the way they would want. Because I think, from what I can see, I think the younger generation these days are walking around typically with a more kind of victim mindset, a bit more of like an entitlement. They expect things quickly, they want things fast, they feel they deserve it without necessarily working for it. Maybe they feel the world's against them a little bit, and I feel if you feel like you are someone with this kind of mentality, if something bad happens in your life, you've got to ask yourself, is it something I've done? Have I caused this to happen? Did I have any control over this situation? And obviously that's the first step to reframing your thoughts. because now you're putting some ownership back on yourself. I think that's the first catalyst. Then in regards to whether you've got like regardless of whether you've got like an entitlement about you or again like a strong victim mindset, I challenge you to challenge yourself on where these beliefs come from. And are they serving you? And are they going to serve you going forward? Well, if you think there's only so many hours in a day and everybody has different things going on, you might have a couple of kids you've got to look after, you might be running multiple businesses, you're trying to look after yourself. The more things you have going on, I'd say the earlier you're going to need to get up in the morning, so you're going to have a good early alarm. You need a good start to the day. Everyone's got their own routines in terms of what they're doing. I know a very common one now is like kind of ice baths early in the morning and go for an early run or hit the gym early, get into work. I think Monday to Friday, you should be kind of on your tasks, putting in as much hard work as possible, being productive. If you're doing multiple things, it's very hard to find time to procrastinate. If you're finding time to procrastinate, you probably haven't got enough going on in your life, because I think any sort of busy, successful person hasn't got too much time to procrastinate. And like procrastination, for example, is not taking you any closer to your ideal life or your grand goals and visions. It's just holding you back, or it's making you feel like, or it's going to make you feel like you're rushing to get things done if you're not spending that time staying on top of things. So, yeah, I do believe strongly in kind of Monday to Friday, you have your routines. Even if within those routines you are going to take some time out of work and go see friends, go see family in the evening or whatever. But I think having some structure and routines is very helpful. It keeps you disciplined, keeps you on track. You're being productive, and when you know you're being productive, you're going to feel better about yourself. I know this hits people harder than others, but like I'm someone, for example, if I'm not using my time very well, I kind of get that feeling that I'm not, and that's when I know it's time to get back on the wheel again. But for other people, maybe they're not getting this feeling as much. They can switch off, they can relax, they can spend hours watching telly, and each to their own. I think everyone's a little bit different, but yeah, I do believe in having kind of a good routine every week and trying to be productive. Because to achieve anything worthwhile in life anyway, it takes time to get to this thing. Like it can take a long time to maybe win your first tennis Grand Slam, or anything you're doing in life takes time to get there. So you haven't really got time to waste. Yeah, I think having a clear, defined path for your life, especially when you're a young person looking ahead to your future, is a very important thing to have. So to tell you a story, a dream I had when I was younger, I wanted to coach tennis abroad. So when I got myself to a level in tennis where I could see I was getting better and progressing, and I was obviously really enjoying it, one of my dreams was, I had a couple, but one of them was to coach tennis abroad. I wasn't necessarily too bothered where. I just wanted to go and coach tennis in a nice place, in a nice climate, in a different environment, and quite an innocent goal really. But so I ended up achieving my dream. I ended up going out to work in Greece as a tennis coach when I was 21, and I had a successful summer season working in a resort, working for Nielsen Holidays. Then I was offered re-employment and like a little promotion to come back for a second summer, and that was in another resort in Greece. Amazing times, amazing memories. And I remember at the time, I was sort of 21, leading groups of people, basically coaching, lawyers, doctors, all these high professionals. They're probably looking at me thinking, who's this kid trying to coach me tennis? But it seemed to go all right. It seemed to go quite well, and really kind of, I guess brought me out of my comfort zone in a massive way. Because you'd be doing presentations and coach exhibitions in front of hundreds of people every week. But yeah, that was a dream. And just to go into a bit more detail, while I was out there in my second season, I hit a little bit of a stumbling block. I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go next. I wasn't sure if I wanted to, fully commit to tennis with the playing, with the coaching, and that's what I'm going to be doing for the next 10 years, or whether I wanted to go and study this, or whether I wanted to go into a whole new field. I was very kind of like, in a way, unsure And I feel like I kind of feel for the young people now as well, because there's lots of different routes you can go. And I remember being out there, and I felt like it was like I was putting pressure on myself as well to make the right choice. Anyway, I had this feeling which kept coming and going when I was out there, and it was a feeling like I need to make a choice. I need to commit to something and just go. And I remember I went down into the town. I went to this like bar and cafe I used to like going to just sort of chill, and I went there and I ended up watching Wimbledon was on, the tennis. It was a really good summer. It was 2012. We had like the Olympics, we had tennis, football, everything was happening. Great summer. But I'm sitting in this cafe bar watching Wimbledon, and I'm like, who's on? So guys put tennis on, and it's one of my favourite players, Ernest Gulbis. He's playing first round centre court against Thomas Berdych from the Czech Republic, who, at the time I think was top 5 in the world, top player. And so Gulbis is a player I like, but he's someone who'd kind of fallen off the rails a little bit. He was probably early to mid-20s at the time, and there was all this talk that he was going to retire. He didn't care about tennis. He was a bit of a live cannon, a bit of a live wire, and I watched the match, and he turns out he's got a new coaching team. He's rededicated himself to the sport. He's had a couple of good results, which has allowed him to get into Wimbledon. And I'm sitting there watching this match, and Gulbis is playing unbelievably well. It's like he's playing almost to his full potential, which everyone saw he had. And long story short, he beat Berdych in straight sets, which no one would have backed him to do. Berdych was clear favourite, and everyone would have backed him to win. And Gulbis has just played unbelievable. Whoa, this guy's really kind of like reaching his potential, which everyone knew he had. And I was like, okay, yeah. So he's just rededicated himself, and then bang, he's got the ability. Everything's there. He's just purely committed to the sport, and he did a couple of interviews which were quite interesting. And I remember just that evening and that next morning, a couple of days after, I was like, light bulb went off in my head. I was like, I know what I need to do. I just need to commit to what you're good at, commit to what you enjoy. So after that, I just had this feeling like I need to go all in on tennis now. I need to be all in on my playing, all in on coaching. It is the path I'm going to go down, and I just committed. I was like, that's my future now. Let's go. There's no umming and ahhing about whether I should do this. It's like let's go, let's do it. And if it doesn't work out, we can deal with that then. And so I went and spoke to my manager, because I was meant to be coming home in October, and there was a course I really wanted to get on in September. I was looking at coaching courses I wanted to do. And my manager very kindly, he allowed me to leave the season a little bit sooner than some of the other staff, so I could get back and go to this course. So thanks to him. And that was just a very good decision, because I got back early, and I just went all in. And kind of the rest is history. A lot of good things, and a lot of things went very north from that decision. I got back and just went all in, and I had to kind of wait a little bit for my first coaching job, a good one to come up, and then once I got that first coaching job, everything kind of started to fall into place, and everything kind of went in a much more favourable direction. But I kind of had that vision, and I kind of had to go all in on it, and that was the best thing I ever did. And the best thing I ever did was go to Greece for that job initially. That's the best thing I ever did. Changed my life, and I'd recommend that experience to anyone. Going and doing a summer season or a winter season. Because if you think of travelling as a whole, when you're younger and you've not really travelled much, or you've not lived abroad or done these things, I think the world can seem like a very big place. And I think once you've travelled a little bit, or you've moved to a big city, or I think the world starts to feel a bit smaller. Like taking a plane almost starts to feel like taking a bus. So I think starting to break that barrier down as well, I think you start to see the world more as an opportunity, almost like a land of opportunity. So I do think it's an important first step you need to take when you're young. But definitely having a clear vision, that's a big thing. And like now, for example, I'm looking to maybe redefine what my future vision is. I've set some new goals, added some new meaning, and I think that's important as well. But just to have that something you're working towards to keep you on a path. Yeah, I can think of a few. I would say probably in more recent times, the thing I found very fulfilling is my kickboxing. I'm currently working towards becoming a black belt in kickboxing, and that's happened quite fast. It's happened at a rate I kind of maybe didn't expect myself. So that's a nice feeling, because I kind of surprised myself in a way with that. And it's leading into potential avenues in terms of maybe competing, you know, professional and different routes. So I found that, you know, very fulfilling. So a lot of work has gone into that. I've had to, you know, train hard and listen and study, and there's been, you know, and it's not a combat sport in general isn't the easiest of sports. It's very demanding. So yeah, that's I found that very fulfilling, and that requires a lot of self-discipline, kickboxing, martial arts in general. So yeah, it's the thing with things which give you fulfillment. It gives you a feeling money can't buy. You know, like that sits with you, the feeling money can't, you know, that fulfillment. So yeah, I think that's something in more recent times. I think it's pretty important. I think the key is to know and learn what makes you happy individually. Like what is it that makes you happy? Like, I think for some people they require maybe more things than another person to be happy or achieve a state of happiness. Of course, there's always going to be fluctuations. I don't believe in like a perpetual state of happiness. I don't think that's necessarily realistic. I'm sure some people can achieve it, but you know, life is, you know, sunshine and rainbows. So, but to know how to like be in a more happier state than say like a sad state or an angry state or like a negative state of mind. I think the key is to find out what makes you happy. And I do think it's very individual. If you think we live in our minds and bodies every day, like I feel like we owe it to ourselves to find out what makes us happy. Like, I personally don't want to be sitting on a chair when I'm older, looking back thinking I wish I'd done X, Y, Z and not done it. Like that's not a feeling I could sit with. And yeah, that's why I think it's an important thing. You know, I think this is maybe how you can avoid things like midlife crises, quarter life crises. You know, almost get a better grasp on yourself. I think that's how maybe you can also avoid some of these things as well. Yeah, well, I believe fitness is a very essential part of life. That's what's going to keep you in a more positive frame of mind. And I see kind of like fitness as a bit of a contract. Like if, for example, if you're someone who's never really looked after yourself, maybe you're overweight, you don't really care about running or sport, or you know, because some people aren't naturally sporty and they enjoy staying at home and watching telly, playing games, and don't really care how they look. That's completely cool. I think if you're someone who's never really discovered fitness and you've never really felt what it's like to be fit to a high degree, or to look good and feel good, I feel if you've never achieved that state, you don't know anything different. So that would be your normal state. But I feel like if you're someone who has been fit and you understand what it's like to be fit and feel good in yourself, I feel like that's a lifelong contract you can't ever breach. I feel like once you've reached that point, when you've found fitness and you've experienced it, I don't think there's no looking back. I think you then you have almost a duty to maintain that for the rest of your life. That's my personal point of view. I feel like the minute you breach that contract, you're going to notice it. You're going to feel a bit worse. You know, other things might start to fall out of place a little bit. I see it as a contract. Well, I think before we go into this, I'm just going to make it clear that I'm not a dating coach. I'm not here trying to sell Forex trading signals, and I'm not trying to teach you how to scale your business to 10K a month. But happy to talk on it. It's an interesting subject, and I have some personal experiences with it as well. So yeah, happy to shed some light. So I think some of the biggest things men need to think about is, particularly if they're going to use dating apps, is I think nowadays sometimes men sell themselves a bit short on dating apps. I think when they go on, you know, perhaps you're a good-looking guy, you know, you've never really had many problems with women. I think a lot of guys kind of blindly go onto the dating apps, putting not much work into their profiles, and putting on some old photos. They kind of expect just to get a bunch of matches. And then when that doesn't happen, I think they can get a bit dejected and they can think, why am I not getting any matches? What's going on? And I kind of see it as like, if you've got a lady walking down the street, a woman walking down the street, and there's 3 different shops, probably the shop which has the nicest front, the one which looks the most presentable, the most well lit, she's probably going to walk into that one and have a little look, as would most people. So my advice would be for men, just to put a little bit of time into your profile. You're going to spend a lot of money on dates anyway, so why not spend a bit of that money getting some new photos? Because you can use them in all different realms of your life, having some professional photos. Put a bit of time into your profile, because at the end of the day, particularly on dating apps, you could be, for every one woman, you're competing with loads of other guys for one woman. The competition is quite fierce, and you got to paint. You got to put yourself in a good light. You can't sell yourself short on dating apps. I feel like men need to put a little bit of time and care into their profile. Go on there with like the right attitude, not just kind of expecting just to go on and I'm Casanova, I'm going to get 1,000 matches, even off a few bad photos. So I think that's a really important element. I think as well, to go on dating apps in 2024 as a guy, you need to have some thick skin as well. You've got to have some thick skin. Like, this happens to everyone. It's a very common phenomenon now called ghosting. And if you go on a dating app, things could be going really well with someone for a period of time. Maybe you've been on a date or you've been talking. This person vanishes off the face of the earth. Maybe their ex-girlfriend, I'm talking for male and female now, maybe their ex-girlfriend or boyfriend's come back into the picture. Maybe they're going through something in their life which has just completely taken them out of that headspace. Anything. And it could happen to Brad Pitt or Jennifer Lopez. The same thing could happen to them. It's not as likely going to happen to them as often. And sometimes it could have been something you've done, and hey, that's a whole different topic. You'd have to maybe hold yourself accountable. Perhaps you've done something which has, made them disappear. But yeah, it happens. So I think men need to have thick skin. Men and women, just don't take things too personally. Just straight back on the horse, cowboy. Yeehaw. Keep moving forward. But yeah, and obviously the only other danger as well, Brad Pitt could obviously come in and steal your crush, and that also is that could happen. So again, if it happens, just brush it off, move forward. I was going to say, in regards to the shop front, what I was talking about as well, I think men also have to build their shop, and this takes time. This is maybe working on your body, working on your career, working on your finances. I feel like for a guy, you've got to build your shop first as well, and this takes time. Like I said, you're competing with lots of other guys, and you want to get yourself into a place where you feel good about where your life's at. You want to welcome someone into your already happy life. You're not trying to like bring someone in to kind of fill a void. You've built a shop for yourself which you're very happy with, and that person is now is a nice welcome addition to your life, not the absolute focus of it, or you're trying to like fill a void. So I feel like men have to take the time to actually build their shop as well. And I do think as well, I think some guys could go on there without putting in any effort, and they might be a bit overweight or whatever. And you could still find the love of your life. I believe this is possible. I think guys can do that, but I just think it's generally going to be a tougher task coming from that position. No, I don't think they should be. I think you should be meeting people organically by just living your life, like going out with friends, and I think that should still be the main way you're doing it. I don't think your dating app should be like at the forefront of your life in terms of how you're going to meet people. You should definitely be getting on with your life naturally and going about your business. And if you see someone in the street who catches your eye, or you're in the supermarket or whatever, like go and talk to them. Like back in caveman days, we weren't walking around with like Hinge or Tinder and Bumble apps. Cavemen had to go and kind of do what they had to do. So I think, what's the worst that could happen? Okay, maybe they say no. They weren't in your life to start with anyway, so what have you got to lose? I just feel like that's missing a bit. I feel like you have to still, go and put yourself out there and talk to people, and, I think just if you get too reliant on dating apps, you're not even going to want to do it. And I don't think it's great for guys. I think guys should still be trying to meet naturally and talk to people. And so yeah, but I think dating apps are fantastic. You can meet some great people on there. You can have amazing experiences. And the reality is everybody's so busy now. Like, busy professionals don't get a lot of free time to always go out and meet people. Or yeah, even, like single mums or, whatever. Like, so dating apps are very convenient, and you say you can meet some fantastic people, have great experiences on dating apps, and I'm sure you can find a relationship for yourself as well, or find someone who you're going to settle down with. So I think they are very good, but yeah, I don't think they should be they shouldn't be at the forefront, in my personal opinion. Well, I'd say my personal experience, going for an evening date, I think is typically better for a first date. Evening may be better than daytime, but again, it's individual, everyone's a bit different, but I personally just like to maybe keep it to like a drinks first date, or just going for a walk, something light, something simple, just to get a feel for who somebody is. I think maybe dinner dates for a first date, for example, can be a bit too much, because you don't really know this person at all. So I feel like probably better to keep it light and simple for the first date. Ooh. Well, I think there's a lot of moving parts and variables when it comes to relationships kind of standing the test of time. I was thinking about something the other day, going back to kind of soccer and football. A few years ago, there was an age-old debate about which player was the best in the world, Messi or Ronaldo. And there was this narrative being pushed that because Ronaldo had sort of travelled around a bit more than Messi, that his CV was more impressive. And there was this whole thing about, could Lionel Messi do it on a cold night in Stoke in England in midwinter? Because he's always done it on a nice day in sunny Spain. And Ronaldo had obviously done it in England on a cold night in Stoke, and he'd been to Italy, been to Spain. So my kind of thinking is, if you can look at the person you're with or you're dating, and you can say, yeah, you know what? We've performed together on a sunny day in Spain, and we performed on a cold night in Stoke, meaning we've gone through like the honeymoon period together, we've gone through the good times, we've gone through some challenges together, and we're still here. I think that's a pretty good starting point for something that could last. To keep it very simple, because I know there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to this, but yeah, I just think that could be like a good acid test. Yeah, so for those who find kind of the modern dating landscape interesting, I'd say a guy worth watching on YouTube is a guy called Chris Williamson. He breaks down kind of the modern dating landscape with stats and figures and studies, and he's done quite a lot on it. It's quite interesting to listen to him. So yeah, if you're interested in the subject as a whole, I highly recommend Chris Williamson. The first step, if I was trying to help someone overcome a setback and get them back on the right path, first step for me is going to be listening, because I think a lot of people first, they need to go through and deal with like the negative emotions surrounding whatever's happened. And in some cases, like grieving, I think go through the grieving process. And then there comes a time where it is time to now start looking forward and trying to take the steps to move forward. And I think when bad things happen, I think people at the time find it hard to see a brighter future and to see all the things they want positive to come into their life. They can't necessarily see it straight away. But I believe you have to have that vision that is possible. And you have to visualize it. You have to believe it's possible. Then it's every day taking the necessary steps, overcoming more hurdles, being patient with the process, being patient with yourself. And yeah, just taking each day at a time, and slowly but surely kind of work into that grand vision. Like life rebuilds, like rebuilding your whole life, for example. Even like take a divorce, for example. If you've gone through a divorce and you've got a big family with kids, that can be a messy situation. Lots of moving parts, and that would take time. For both parties to kind of rebuild their lives in the way they see fit. That's going to take time. So it's really just explaining that it's going to be a process. Good days and bad days, but just think about what your vision is, your goal, how do you want things to look in the future, and then just actively kind of gently helping them get to that point. But yeah, I think patience is definitely going to be key as well, depending on the severity of what happened. But I think the worst thing is maybe kind of running away from problems, not facing problems head on. I think it's better to face problems head on. I actually had a very close friend of mine who I actually consider a brother. He's amazing guy, very capable individual. He's gone through a couple of things in recent times, and in some capacity I've been there for him, but for the most part he has just tackled his problems head on, and now he's thriving. He's doing so well in every area of his life, and it's just amazing to see. It just shows you, and that took him probably a year. That was a year-long process for him just to kind of turn the ship around, and it's just amazing to watch, but it takes time, so that's what I would be doing. That would be my role, and to remind people that, hey, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was the good life. Yeah, so I think resilience is very important. I'd say observing like successful people, that's obviously one of the traits they have in common, and I think, yeah, building resilience obviously means stepping outside of your comfort zone initially. Like, you almost got to be in the deep end of the swimming pool, kind of like, wow, I'm not drowning, I'm actually swimming. And I think to have resilience, that's what's obviously going to help you get through the tougher times a little bit more easier. Like successful people, they'll have a setback or a failure, but they don't really see it as a failure. And they bounce back very fast, they learn what they need to learn, they adapt and they move forward. So having that skill, almost like that coping mechanism for when tough times happens is, yeah, very, very important. I think that's why from a young age it's important to try and build like a resilient person, because then whatever life throws at you, you can have the answers to it. Well, I think, yeah, it's just having someone who can maybe give you a different perspective. That can sometimes go a long way. Someone who sometimes you might need someone who might need to hold you accountable. Like, ideally, you're going to be holding yourself accountable to make sure you're kind of trying to move forward. But sometimes you might need someone who's just going to give a slightly different perspective or help you with a solution to a problem. And yeah, this is where I think life coaches come in, because they can give that. They can give a different perspective. They can hold someone accountable who's maybe not got someone to hold them accountable, and can offer solutions. So yeah, sure, I think there's quite a few options out there. Something that comes to my mind, and this is a book I read back in my early 20s. It's a book by a guy called Viktor Frankl, who's a famous psychologist. He invented a type of therapy called logotherapy. But Viktor Frankl, the book Man's Search for Meaning, he talks about his experiences during the World War II concentration camps, because he spent time in a few different ones. And he observed amongst the inmates in the camps, the ones who generally survived were the people who had something positive to look forward to. So people who could find meaning and purpose in pretty much in a dire situation. And he speaks about in the book how one person, for example, was thinking about like a potential future interaction with a loved one, and that thought of the future conversation with the loved one was enough to keep that person going. And he speaks, about people who generally couldn't find meaning and purpose in that situation, generally wouldn't survive. So basically, they had to have a strong, almost a very strong grip on their spirituality and being able to kind of like keep the hope. So he speaks a lot about that, and long story short, his philosophy is all about deep inside, everybody's just deepest desire is to find meaning to our lives. That's what everyone's deepest desire is, to find kind of meaning and purpose. So, yeah, I mean, that's a really extreme situation, World War II concentration camps, but it just teaches you that, yeah, if you can find meaning and purpose in a situation like that, I think that's quite powerful. Yeah, I would say the ones that come to my mind straight away off the bat would probably be Tyson Fury's comeback story, the heavyweight boxer. He was clearly in a very dark place. I know he battles with mental health, and yeah, he was going for a very dark time. He had the world at his feet. He'd won the heavyweight championship of the world. Um, dethroning Klitschko, like a 10-year champion. He was a millionaire, and his struggles have been well documented. But I feel like his comeback story was epic. I think that was a really big thing. I think he grabbed the hearts of mental health sufferers and non-mental health sufferers. Because I think in England in particular, we love a comeback story. And his was the ultimate comeback story. Like he'd kind of hit rock bottom, and he came all the way back to eventually get back into the ring with Deontay Wilder and, beat Deontay Wilder. And it all happened in quite a short amount of time. He came back, he lost the weight, and it's just that whole comeback story. And I think now he's a massive ambassador for mental health, and I know he goes around and does tours, but I think even non-mental health sufferers could buy into that story, because it was pretty inspirational from the place he was to where he got to. It is one of the big standout ones in the last 5 years. Now I think in terms of other ones that come to my mind, I'd say influencers such as Jordan Peterson, like Andrew Tate. During COVID, they were quite big, prominent figures all over the internet. They were very big on their kind of motivational angle and inspirational angle, and I think they were quite prominent during sort of COVID times. So I feel like those two were definitely coming to my mind as well. And again, not necessarily targeting people who suffer with mental health, but just that motivational element they were bringing, I'd say was quite big. And there's lots of others as well, but they're the ones that probably come to my mind the most. Well, just using the Fury Wilder first fight as an example. When Fury had been knocked down and the ref started to count, the whole world thought Fury was out cold and he was done. Like, everyone thought that was it. 4, 5, 6, 7. Then he gets up. Bang. He fights back in that last round, and he wins the last round. Everyone was like, how's he done this? Like, he rose up like the Undertaker from wrestling. And in that moment, Fury made a choice. He got hit hard. Does he stay down and get counted out? Or does he get back up and fight? And like I say, he didn't just get back up and fight. He got back up and he walked Wilder down, and he won the round. And for me, that sums everything up. That sums up, you have to make a choice when tough things happen. Are you going to lay down and be counted out, or are you going to get up and fight back? That's a good question. I think people who are ready to be helped. I think that's the key, because you can only lead a horse to water. You can't make the horse drink. So I think people who are kind of at the point where they're ready for help, whatever their problem is, whichever situation they're in, I think those are the types of people who I'd be sort of, ready to work with.